Okay, welcome back in. I figured might as well do this now while I have the time. So I'm going to be making my previews for this Sunday's championship games of the National Football League. I know I say this in every single video I do as the weeks go by, but it's just so hard to believe that we're at this time of the year and it's almost over. I can't believe it. So we're down to the last four teams, two in the NFC, obviously, and two in the AFC as well. We'll do the game on the left side as the Philadelphia Eagles, the number 2 seed, are taking on the number 6 seed in the Washington Commanders. For those that aren't aware, these two are division rivals as well in the NFC East. So uh, they're very familiar with each other, to say the least. So for the Eagles, they won last week against, last week against the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round to advance to the championship game. And as for the Washington Commanders, they would defeat the best team in the NFC in the Detroit Lions. So they have two away wins in two games. That's obviously a recipe for success in my books. So heading into this particular matchup, regular season and playoffs, this is going to be the 181st time that the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles will be playing against each other. So to say that these two teams are familiar with each other would be an understatement. And I'm sure there's just as much hatred from Washington to Philly and vice versa. I doubt either team will be thrilled if their opponent comes away with the victory. Now, the crazy part is the fact that not only they've met that many times, but this is only going to be their second time meeting in the postseason. Hard to believe you play each other that many times, almost 200 times, and you've only met in the playoffs once before this particular game. It's pretty wild, in my opinion. So you have to go all the way back to the 1990-1991 season when these two teams would meet in a wild card matchup. Washington went into Philadelphia and won that game 20-6, January 5th, 1991. So therefore Washington has a 1-0 lead in their playoff series. Will they be able to make it 2-0 and advance to the Super Bowl, or will Philadelphia be able to even that record and get back to the big dance? Only time will tell. So these two teams split their season series, both teams winning at home respectively. This is going to be a very competitive game, to say the least. The stakes couldn't be any higher considering an appearance in the Super Bowl is on the line. The Eagles last made it to the big dance just 2 years ago, while the Commanders, formerly known as the Redskins, haven't been to the Super Bowl in over 3 decades. So I'm sure they're eager to end the slump. The fans and players, I'm sure, would love to have an opportunity to at least to see them go one more game. The Commanders, to me at least, could be a dark horse in this matchup and for this playoff run as well. Not a whole lot of people, including myself, gave them much of a chance during this postseason run, but they are proving a lot of people wrong. They could go into Philly and pull off a win. They beat the Buccaneers and the Lions respectively so far, so it would not be surprising if they pulled off 3 straight away victories. And I've said this before that they wouldn't be the first number 6 seed to go all the way. I'm sure other teams recently may have done that, but one team that really pops into my mind is the 2005-2006 Pittsburgh Steelers. They would finish as a number 6 seed in the AFC, going all the way to the Super Bowl and winning that game as well. So it's not completely out of the cards or unlikely that Washington couldn't do this or that they could, but again, anything can happen, especially on Sundays. Jayden Daniels is definitely an elite quarterback after his latest performance in Detroit. The Commanders are definitely a threat in the NFC. Um, they beat Philadelphia earlier in the season, so there's no question that they could beat them again. As for the Eagles, they're hosting the championship game, so maybe having home field advantage, having the crowd behind you, that could help propel them getting a win and advancing to the Super Bowl. Home field advantage could be a major factor, or it could also be a non-factor as well. I mean, if you look at the Lions and Tampa Bay Buccaneers respectively, I guarantee those fans thought that they'd be leaving their stadiums with a win, but unfortunately they both came away with a loss. So it just goes to show, just because you have home field doesn't necessarily mean you're guaranteed to win. Jalen Hurts is definitely a very good quarterback, looking healthy and better than ever, especially since he suffered a concussion late in the season and even missed some time as well. Saquon Barkley, I can't rave enough about how he seems to have found his next step. Like, he's definitely uh, come out of his shell, to say the least, especially after spending all of those years in New York and not having as much success as he's having in Philadelphia. So a fantastic offseason signing by Philly, and it's definitely paid off as he's rushed for over 2,000 yards for the first time in his career. And if he comes back, I guarantee Philly's going to want to re-sign him, because I'm pretty sure they only did a 1-year deal with him, if I'm not mistaken. So I guarantee, no matter the outcome of this game or possibly the Super Bowl outcome, if they make it that far, I'm sure they'll want to re-sign him, and I'm sure he wants to get paid, to say the least, as well. So for Philly, just like a lot of teams, they are a dual threat. They can run the ball, they can pass it. Uh, I feel like a lot of quarterbacks nowadays have to be mobile, because of how fast and aggressive the defensive line can be. It's very scarce that you're going to find a lot of pocket passers in the NFL, mainly because, like I said, you could have 4 or 5 people rushing against you, and they could overpower your O line. So it almost feels like you have to be able, as soon as you hike the ball, make up your mind quick and try to avoid a sack or being hit. So I'm going to be pretty bold on this one. I bet against Washington the last 2 weeks. And I mean, should Philadelphia win? Of course they should win. Are they the favorite? I personally think they are. But just because I bet against Washington the last 2 weeks, I'm going to pick them to win this game and advance to the Super Bowl, like I said, for the first time since 1991. And I'm sure a lot of fans that are cheering for the Commanders would love that as well. Okay, so switching sides onto the right side of your screen, as we have the Kansas City Chiefs, the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions, are taking on the Buffalo Bills. These two teams have met 57 times, regular season and postseason combined. The Buffalo has, I forgot to write down the overall record. Crap. That's one thing I forgot to do. And I can't do that right now because my phone is hooked up to the TV. So unfortunately, I can't tell you who has the edge. I want to say Kansas City has the edge in this matchup, or the overall series. But I can tell you this, that they have met 6 times in the playoffs. This will obviously be the 7th time. The first time was back in 1967, January 1st, New Year's Day. Kansas City went into Buffalo and defeated the Bills 31-7 en route to their first Super Bowl appearance, and that was actually the very first Super Bowl that year as well. So that the AFC Championship game that those two teams played. They met again in 1992 in a divisional matchup. Kansas City went into Buffalo. This time Buffalo got the revenge, beating them by 23 points, 37-14. 2 years later, they would meet in the championship game in 1994, January 23rd. Buffalo would again defeat Kansas City 30-13 in a championship game, advancing to the Super Bowl. And then the last 3 times, it's been Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, respectively. Buffalo went into KC and to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs would win that game 38-24 en route to a Super Bowl appearance. 2022, they would meet in the divisional matchup in Kansas City. It would take overtime to settle this game. 42-36 would be the final score in favor of the Chiefs. And just most recently, in last year's playoffs, in a divisional round, the Chiefs went into Buffalo and defeated them 27-24. So Kansas City, they do have a 4-2 lead when it comes to the playoff series at that. Now, the winner of this game, if it's Kansas City, they'll obviously have a 5-2 edge when it comes to the playoff series. And obviously, if Buffalo wins, that will cut the lead to 4-3. So these two teams played earlier in the season, the Bills winning that game 30-21, ending the Chiefs' perfect season at that. And that was only one of 2 losses that KC suffered. The last game of the season, they would lose to Denver, but that was a meaningless game because they had already clinched the #1 seed in the AFC, and there's really no point in risking injury that late in the year. The Bills are a threat in the AFC. The only thing that's standing in their way and preventing them from being the best team in the AFC is obviously the team that they're playing against with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills seem to have success playing against Kansas City when it comes to the regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, the Chiefs the Chiefs definitely get the better of the Bills. Like I said, they've won the last 3 matchups respectively in the Mahomes and Allen era. Could this be the year that the Bills finally overcome their foe? It is possible. Will they? Again, you'll have to wait until the end of the game to find out whether they can finally get over that hump. In my opinion, Josh Allen is the league MVP. There's no argument about that. There might be other players that should be in the conversation, but just because he's been so elite, you can't argue against the fact that he does deserve to be the MVP of this game. So when it comes to Josh Allen, when you look at him, you would think he's more of like a pocket passer just because of how big and rugged he is, but he's mobile as well. I did write this down. Looking at him, you would think he was more, like I said, more of a pocket passer, but he does have legs, and he's not afraid to use them, especially when it comes to 3rd and short or 4th and short. You can almost guarantee he's going to be the one trying to advance the ball to either get a touchdown or at least a first down. He's got weapons on the outside. James Cook can run and catch the ball, just like a lot of running backs in this league. You have to be able to run and catch and block as well, so you have to be kind of like a triple threat when it comes to that area. So I've talked a lot about the Bills. There's really not a whole lot I can talk about with the Chiefs, and it's not because I'm a Broncos fan and I don't want to talk about them, but like, what else is there really to say? I mean, Mahomes is obviously an elite quarterback in this league. He's won the 3 Super Bowls in his tenure as the Chiefs quarterback. He's got weapons around him. Again, he's a dual threat as well. He can throw it, he can run it. So just like a lot of quarterbacks in this league, he's got a Hall of Fame coach, and obviously when he has probably one of the best tight ends in the game in Travis Kelce, and like I said, he's got weapons as well when it comes to the wide receivers, whether it's Hopkins or Smith-Schuster, and then they obviously have the running backs as well helping out Mahomes not throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. So that's definitely a huge advantage when it comes to the Chiefs. Again, I could probably talk all day about all 4 of these teams, but unfortunately, I only have so much time. So, again, I'm not trying to make it sound like I want to say more about the Bills than I want to talk about the Chiefs. But again, like I said, what is there to say about Kansas City that hasn't already been said? That's pretty much all I'm trying to get at. So I'm going to be bold on this one, and I'm going to say the Bills finally, and I mean finally, I can't stress that word enough, get their revenge and go into Kansas City and get a W. I'll say the final score will be 31-27. I just think that the Bills are a different team. They're a different breed. And yes, they've lost the last 3 matchups to Kansas City when it comes to the postseason, whether it's the divisional game or a championship game. But again, I've said this several times before. There is something different about this Buffalo team that makes me believe that they can go into KC and get a win and advance to their first Super Bowl, just like the Washington Commanders, and end their 3-decade-long drought and get back to the big dance. So I believe both away teams, Washington and Buffalo, will win respectively, and that should be one heck of a Super Bowl matchup if that is the case. And the crazy part is I'm pretty sure the last time Washington was in the Super Bowl was ironically against the Bills. This could almost be like a Super Bowl rematch, 3 decades in the making. So because I went 2-2 last week with my predictions, I believe my playoff record after 10 games is 6-4. So even if I get both these games wrong, I'll at least finish with a 500 record heading into the Super Bowl. And obviously, if I get at least one of these 2 teams right, then I should finish above 500 even after the Super Bowl is done. So that's going to be my preview for this Sunday's championship games, respectively. I definitely will be watching both the games. As like I said, we only have 3 more meaningful games left of the football season, and then we'll have about 7 months of sorrow and waiting patiently for the new season to get underway in September. All right, that's going to take care of this video. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, and as always, take care.